Hello there, welcome back to Jennie Designs with Paper. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I'm working on a winter art journal page, so get comfy and let's get crafty. This is mood board number 28 for the Artsy Trio Facebook group, and the title is Winter in December. So I will be using that idea of winter and some of the colors on this mood board to create my art journal page. To begin with, I've gone through my napkin stash. I have pulled out this Christmas themed napkin. It is a 2-ply napkin, so I'm going to go ahead and separate that. And then I will adhere this napkin to my art journal page with some fluid adhesive. This is a matte adhesive. I do not like the shiny stuff for reasons we've discussed multiple times on my channel. I live in a humid climate. It makes the pages stick together, and shiny is weird. It looks weird. It's hard to photograph, but you know. So once I have a nice layer of that adhesive onto my art journal page, I'm going to go ahead and spread this napkin out. I'm not super worried about wrinkles, but I do want to kind of eliminate that fold crease. I'm also putting some of the adhesive over the top to further adhere that napkin down to my art journal page, which, by the way, is about 5 by 8.5 inches, 5.5 by 8.5 roughly. Once I have heat set this with my heat tool, I can go ahead and rip, tear, cut, shred, all of the things, edges of this napkin. It probably would just really have been easier if I just pulled out my scissors and just cut it, but it was still a little bit wet on the edges and, you know. So anyway, I used scissors, I tore it, I used a wet paintbrush, I used all the things. Once I have that trimmed off, I'm going to push that into the background by adding some white gesso over the top. This is kind of a thicker gesso, so I am using a wet paintbrush to move that gesso around a little bit. It will dry back and be a little bit more transparent. It's not completely opaque, but you know, that's kind of what gesso does. And the napkin really is just there to break the blank page, right? For color, I'm using my Brushos. Brushos are a powdered pigment. It's a water-activated powder pigment. So I added water to my background. I sprinkled some of that powder on. A little goes a long way. That's why I just have a little thumbtack hole in the lid of my powder. But my water bottle was not quite cutting it, so I did use a wet paintbrush to move that around. After I heat set that, I added a little more water. Now I'm using the kind of turquoisey green color from that package. I'm using less of the green. This is more to just add some dimension to the color in the background, a little bit of highlight and low light. And as I'm adding more and more liquid, what I'm noticing is that even though there is some medium's not the right word, adhesive, there we go, on the napkin, it is still crinkling a little bit underneath there, and I kind of like that. I tried adding water with a fan brush there because, not on purpose, I just grabbed the wrong paintbrush, let's be honest. But I do like the texture that was created by the wrinkling of the napkin and the multiple colors. So I have this snowflake stencil. This is a Hero Art stencil, and I have a tub of light and fluffy modeling paste from the Crafters Workshop. Now, this stencil is a snowflake frame stencil, so I'm just kind of flipping it around to get a layer of snowflakes into the top portion of my page. I thought I had a glittery texture paste, and I couldn't find it, so I pulled out my glitter embossing powder after I got all the snowflakes down, and, you know, then when I was cleaning up my desk, I found it. But that's okay because this works too. That embossing powder does stick to more than just the texture paste because the background is still a little bit wet, but whatever. I'm just going with it. There's a little bit of glitter still falling off, but that's okay. So I did go ahead and heat set that embossing powder. The majority of it is heat set. The glitter will still kind of rub off. We're just going to move on. I have these 2 tree die cuts. They're actually the same die cut. On the one with the taller trunks, I just did not cut out the bottom edge of the die so that I could make the trunks longer. I am adding some green with archival ink. I cannot remember the color of this ink. It's dark green. Okay, it's dark green. I'm just very random. What's the right? It's not random. It's not selective. Not uniformly adding green ink to these pine trees. I don't need it to be perfectly the same everywhere. In fact, that would be very flat. I'm also going to add some ink to these little greenery branches. I did not end up using these. I just felt like I needed to have lots of options for when I went to put my page together. These are from a honeybee stamp die set. I did use the brown ink, archival ink, to add brown to the trunks of my trees, even the short ones. And I also have from Honeybee some holly leaves and holly berries. I'm going to ink up the berries with a red ink. I'm just pouncing on them because I know I'm going to add red to them another way. I just need them to be less white. I'm using the fern green archival ink to add some green to these hollyberry leaves. And here I'm using my tweezers to hold them in place as if my fingertips are not already permanently, or well, I shouldn't say permanently because temporarily blue from all the pigment powder on the page, but whatever. All right, it's time to put the page together. My plan is to have a tree cluster in the bottom or along the left side with a word die cut kind of making an L across the bottom of the page and some of that greenery poking out around the word die cut. The execution turned out great. There are obviously things I would do different because that's how we all are, right? Once our pages or our creation is done, we look at it and go, oh, I could have done X, Y, and Z differently. I'm using Tombow glue to put the trees down, just a little bit behind each of the branches. I do intend to go over them with that liquid medium, oh my gosh, the matte adhesive, matte medium. We'll call it that, matte medium, just to make sure I get them stuck down properly. But it seemed like I needed a little bit of glue on the back to get them started. That the pigment on the background is water reactive, so the less times I go at that with a wet paint brush, the less likely it is to change color or to smear or move. So that's why I did not just put the adhesive down first. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit on top of the trees, which are archival ink, and that is not water soluble, right? So I can go ahead and smear that around a little bit. There was a little bit of that blue and the turquoise coming up on my brush, but nothing that was a huge problem. So now we're adding snow. This is the Marvy Uchida, I think is how you say that word, snow pen. And you put this liquid down on your paper or fabric or whatever, and when you add heat from your heat tool, your heat gun, it puffs up and it makes it look like snow. There's a learning curve to this pen. It's all about how much. You have to get enough liquid for it to stay wet long enough to puff up, but you can't push down on the pen nib or you get a whole bunch and it just makes giant snow bubbles, which you will see in a minute here. I'm using the snow pen to add a layer of snow to the ground. I'm going to create kind of a landscape hill there. And right here is where I'm kind of using the pen in my left hand and the heat tool in my right hand. And, well, there's a couple places I got a little bit, like right here. I got a little bit extra with that snow pen, and it just kind of, it blooped. See, it blooped. But whatever, snow is not perfectly in alignment. All right, we're going to put the pen away, and we are going to start adding the die cut words. So I have, I think it is My Favorite Things die. It says peace. And I've cut it twice out of 110-pound cardstock and stacked it up. And I'm going to, my intent was to use the waist to line the letters up properly. And in my hubris, I'm like, I can line this up. They're clearly not straight. At the end of the day, they're clearly not straight. Also, I forgot that I was going to put red ink on these letters to add some more red to this page. And I did not remember that until I had all 5 letters firmly glued down to my page. So I will have to address that. I have a plan, though. I have a plan. But clearly, I did not put these letters on in a straight line. They are kind of slightly arched up as you go to the right. But whatever. It is what it is. I've never claimed to be able to draw a straight line even with a ruler, so I could have used a T-square ruler too, and that would have helped. But, we're just moving on. We are embracing the art in whatever form it comes in, right? Okay, I want to put these holly leaves kind of around that word. Probably should have thought about that before I glued that word down and held it in place for a long time, because there's no way I'm sliding these leaves underneath those letters. So I glued a couple of those holly leaves together, and I'm just going to perch them right here on top of that E. Hindsight, this is one of the things I would do different. I wouldn't put that on. I'd find another way to add some red and green in there. I'm going to put the red holly berries down, just 3 of them. They're not super red yet. I do have a plan for that, though, so don't worry. I do have a plan to make them redder. I could have used red cardstock, but that's way too easy. So I pulled out my red Pitt pen, and I went over the berries. And then I'm going over the letters with the Pitt pen as well, which makes them pop up off. That was not English. Pop up off the page nicely. It also adds some red, which is a contrasting color to the green, and the blue. It looks nice. And it also adds that kind of Christmassy element as well, because, red and green, they're the Christmas colors. I wanted to add some glitter to the holly berries, but my red glitter stickles was separated and would not mix back together. So I put a flat red Ranger, it's not stickles, that's what it's called. And then I put the diamond colored one on top of it, and I mixed it together with my pick. And so it looks like a glittery red berry now. And I can live with that. It's pretty. I let it set to dry for a long, long time. Like, so long I had to put my long sleeves back on long. I'm going to go ahead and add a piece of pattern paper to the back of this page. I put double-sided adhesive around the edges and then glue in the middle. And I'm just going to line that up. It's slightly larger on one side. I'll trim that off camera. You don't have to watch that. And now we're going to punch holes. And surprisingly, miraculously, there was no giant blob of snow where I needed to put a hole for my page. So that was a miracle right there. I did sign and date my page right there along the right-hand side. And I am going to glue the mood board photo to the back of the art journal page, so I will remember what my inspiration was when I'm looking back at my art journal pages. I'm going to zoom in here just a little bit. Hopefully you can see some of that glitter. It doesn't photograph really well. And the snow looks super cool. So this is my art journal page for the Artsy Trio December mood board. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for hanging out with me. I have a couple of other videos here I think you might like. I've also added that subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you did. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me how you feel about glitter in your craft room. Give me a thumbs up and have a really fabulous day.